So without further ado, let's get started. Please join me in welcoming our first speaker, architect Jonathan David Chong. Um, he, he is speaking on his topic. He's speaking on aligning sustainable architecture with the United Nations SDGs, um, using innovative approaches. I'll quickly read his bio. Jonathan David Chong is a certified architect, registered with the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria, ACON, and a member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. He has actively been involved in architectural community, working in both the private and public sectors, as well as in academia. He's a principal partner at the architectural firm Aclove Group Limited, and also works as a lecturer in the Department of Architecture at the University of Jos in Nigeria. Embracing an Afrocentric approach in architecture, Jonathan integrates the adaptation of materiality and sustainable architecture with vernacular architecture to promote awareness of the Sustainable Development Goals in all his design, projects, and teaching. Jonathan has participated in various workshops and conferences both locally and internationally. He currently holds the position of secretary at the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Plateau State Chapter, from 2023 to 2025, and previously served as assistant secretary 2019 to 2021. Please, with your digital hands in the chat box, help me welcome architect Jonathan David Chong. I'm looking forward to a very insightful session. Thank you.
Good morning, beautiful people, everyone that's online. First and foremost, my appreciation goes to Association of City Managers in Nigeria, ACMAN, for this opportunity. I am architect Jonathan David Chong, and I will be speaking on a topic: aligning sustainable architecture with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals through innovative approaches. Before then, let me quickly say this. It's a privilege for me to share this platform with my mentors, include the CPDI director, and then architect John Bauer. I think the other speaker we've not met, but I've been following their works in CPDI. That's the architect Amina also. Having said this, I want to appreciate the president and the host for this opportunity. At first, after looking at the theme of this particular capacity development workshop, innovative approaches to sustainable architecture, it covers a lot with design, materials, and technology. But as a person, I felt, let me advocate and create awareness of sustainable development goals, because as architects, we're supposed to be the key drivers to sustainable development. Sustainability is something that is multidisciplinary, and for the fact that it's multidisciplinary, most architects and professionals in the built environment, we've been left behind. I hope you are all hearing me. Are we
Loud
together?
and clear. Loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay. So as architects or as professionals in the built environment, we're supposed to be the key drivers in leading the sustainable development goals. But most of us are unaware of this. And that is why by the time you look at the sustainable development goals, you hardly hear of people in the built environment. People from other disciplines have taken over. But this is an opportunity, and that's why I want to appreciate ACMAN for this opportunity, so that we can create awareness on the sustainable development goals. First and foremost, looking at sustainability in itself. Sustainability refers to the ability of a society ecosystem or other ongoing systems to continue functioning in the indefinite future without being forced into decline through exertion or overloading of the key resources to which the system, on which that system. This was a quotation by Foley et al. 2003. And then apart from that, if you look at it, sustainability is one of the keywords that I'm using for my topic. Sustainable development, in the other sense, it embodies integration, understanding and acting on the complex interconnections between the environment, economy, and society. Sustainability in itself, it refers to a state. That's from the definition you get to understand that. It refers to a state, while sustainable development refers to the process for achieving this state. Grade 2010. In all of this, we have to look at architecture, since this particular capacity workshop is aimed at architecture, and by extension, I want to say professionals in the built environment, because the president is a town planner, and leaders in the built environment, we work as a team. So permit me, in the course of this lecture, if you hear me say professionals in the built environment. Architecture, as we all know, is the art and science of designing and constructing building structures, spaces that made up the built environment. The built environment is key here. Spaces, constructing buildings, spaces for the built environment. Having all this background as our keywords, we will continue further in understanding what sustainable architecture is all about. Sustainable architecture, looking at it from the keywords we just looked at, is an approach to the design and construction and operation of buildings that prioritize environmental, social, and economic sustainability. The goal is to create buildings that are environmentally responsible, socially inclusive, and economically viable, which also enhancing the well-being of occupants and the surrounding community. So if you look at it here, the space, the environment, the occupants, all are at the core of our mandate as professionals in the built environment. Now, what are the key aspects of sustainable architecture? Once you're talking about sustainability or sustainable architecture, there are key three performances that you have to look out for. One, environmental performance. You have to look at the economic performance, and then you have to look at the social performance. This is a figure by Carter and Rogers Triple, their bottom line sustainability model that was captured in their own research work. Now, looking at the environmental sustainability, it minimizes the impact on natural resources and environment, reducing energy consumption and greenhouse gas emission, promoting the use of renewable, sustainable, and low-impact materials. In the course of this program, you will be hearing me talk about the materials, various sort of materials that are required for you to enhance your knowledge on sustainable architecture. Then implementing strategies for water conservation and waste management. Second is social sustainability. Social sustainability has to do with enhancing occupant health, comfort, and well-being, promoting accessibility, inclusivity, and adaptability of buildings, considering the cultural, historical context of the local community, fostering community engagement and social cohesion. And this is where our jobs as professionals in the built environment comes in. And I'm happy to share this platform because with the CPDI director, because in some instances you will hear her talk about Afrocentric, and this is where social sustainability comes into place.
I can still go to their site later. This not the recording is
someone is
Kinde, okay. Please could you mute?
Okay. Considering the cultural history context of the local community, you will hear her talk about Afrocentric and Afrocentrism, which essentially it focuses on the influence by Africa or culture of African regions. And all this has to do with social sustainability. We have the third, which is economic sustainability. It entails reducing operating and maintenance costs over the building lifetime, considering the life cycle assessment and long-term viability, promoting local employment and supporting the local economy, ensuring financial feasibility, cost effectiveness, sustainable design strategies. What are the key principles of sustainable architecture? Principles behind sustainable architecture entails energy efficiency, water conservation, use of sustainable and low impact materials, waste reductions and circularity, healthy indoor environment and occupant well-being, consideration of the local climate and context, adaptability and flexibility of buildings over time. If you look at the third aspect here, that's use of sustainable and low impact materials. When we are talking about sustainable materials, they are broadly into two sources. We have the renewable sources, and then we have the reuse from waste. So with time, you will be hearing us and itemize all of these materials, so that we know when and how to use them. The early pioneers and the emergence of the sustainable design movement started in the early 20th century. The contemporary architect Frank Lloyd Wright came up with this organic architecture scheme. And we know that organic architecture is the architecture design philosophy that emphasizes the harmonious integration of the building with its natural surroundings. It encompasses harmony with nature, organic forms, shapes, materials, functions, flexibility, holistic approach. And apart from Frank Lloyd, we had Bruce Goffey and then Paul Solari. Those are contemporary architects that inculcated organic architecture into their own schemes. And then we have the impact of the oil crisis in the 1970s. Then the rise of the green building. That is exactly what we're seeing now. The introduction of the leadership in energy and environmental design practices. Having this background, what are the innovative approaches to align sustainable architecture with the SDGs? With the definition of sustainable architecture, with the key principles, and the historical context that I've just given now, we will realize that we all need all of this in expanding the sustainable design principles. And in expanding the design principles, we have to look at it in a holistic approach with integrated design, circular economy, and embodied carbon, and then emphasis on occupant health and well-being. When we are talking of integrated design, that is where the sustainable design comes into place. And as architects, it entails of us to have all the parameters in coming up with design principles that will aid our design, or will aid our work as professionals in the built environment. Because you cannot give what you don't have. So if you are left to preserve the environment, how will you go about that? Will you keep on destroying the faunas, the flora, just because you want to put up buildings? Or will you inculcate all of this into your own design? So a holistic approach and integrated design it started in the early 20s and beyond. It has to do with the sustainable architecture movement shifted towards a more holistic integrated design approach, considering the interplay between various building systems, the environmental, social, and then economic impact. So as architects and the professionals in the built environment, we have to embrace a whole system perspective seeking to optimize the overall sustainability of buildings rather than focusing on individual design elements. For emphasis on occupant health and well-being, the sustainable architecture movement has evolved to place a greater emphasis on health, comfort, and well-being of building occupants. You know that as professionals in the built environment, the end users are a major concern, and then because we create those spaces for them, so we need to adopt strategies such as improve indoor air quality, thermal comfort, daylighting, and then paraphilic design principles of design that will aid in coming up with adequate spaces for the end users. Circular economy and embodied carbon. More recently, the sustainable architecture movement has started to address embodied carbon and life cycle impact of building materials and construction processes. The concepts such as circular economy, material use, and the minimization of embodied carbon have gained traction as part of the broader sustainability agenda. The evolution of sustainable architecture has been shaped by the response of environmental challenges, technological advancement, and societal awareness. So, what are the milestones and advancements in sustainable architecture? First, you have to give it to the proponents of passive solar design, energy efficient building techniques, that's inculcating natural techniques. Then the development of green building ratings. I've spoke about that earlier. Increased focus on embodied carbon life cycle assessment, and then advancement in building technologies and renewable energy integration. The contemporary trends and the future of sustainable architecture. The future of, if you look at it in most developed countries, and even in some developed countries, you'll hear them talk about research going on net zero energy and carbon neutral buildings, biophilic design, and human-centric approaches. So our designs should come up with biophilic design and human approaches that will aid in solving or creating spaces that we for our end users. Integration of smart technologies and digital tools, circular economy principles in the built environment. One of the speakers will shed more light on introduction of smart technologies and digital tools. So overall, the sustainable architecture is a holistic approach to a building design and construction that aims to minimize the environmental impact and resource consumption of buildings throughout the entire life cycle of that building. This provides a solid foundation for subsequent sections on aligning sustainable architecture with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So looking at it, let's connect all that with the historical, the definition, the historical context with the Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations Sustainable Development are a set of 17 interrelated goals adopted by United Nations in 2015
Architect
to
Jonathan,
address.
you have 5 minutes to go.
Yes, to address global challenges and achieve a more sustainable future by 2030. The 17 SDGs cover a wide range, including poverty, health, education, gender, and lots more. So the synergies between sustainable architecture and SDGs are found within 6 of the goals, if you ask me. First is the SDG 7, that's Sustainable Development Goal, which has to do with affordable and clean energy. Sustainable Development 11, sustainable cities and communities. Sustainable Development 12, responsible consumption and climate change. And Sustainable Development 15, that's life on earth. But paramount, if you look at one of the goals, it has to do with education. So education too is a priority. Someone is disturbing. Moderator, can you get that person making that? So SDG 15 has to do with life on the land. And then apart from that, Sustainable Development Goals 17 has to do with partnership. When you don't partner, you really can't connect and then be a leader or a mentor in the sustainable within the sustainable network. We have to network, and that's the more reason I'm giving it out to the ACMAN leadership for organizing seminars in this nature. So what are the benefits and opportunities for architects and professionals in the built environment? To promote the use of renewable energy, green, conclusive and accessible built environments that subject the well-being of occupants. Enhancing SDGs can also help architects and designers differentiate their practices, attract like-minded clients, and position themselves as leaders in the sustainable movement. Innovative approaches to sustainable architecture, energy efficiency design. Our design must be passive solar, has all those principles, net zero energy. Second, we have water conservation and management, sustainable materials and construction, biophilic design, adaptive reuse, and renovations, which has to do with retrofitting. We have case studies that I have arranged here. We have like 3 focusing on the African context. We have the first case study, that's the Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe. It's a commercial building in Harare, and it has to do with passive cooling system inspired by termite molds. This is where organic and then the organic architecture comes into play. We have this structure by Francis Kere. It's a clinical health center in Burkina Faso, and then it was constructed with ram blocks, ram head bricks, protruding colorful bay windows, and located at different heights. If you look at the pictures, you get to understand more. We have also the community-driven housing project in Ghana. That's the Token Eco Village. This embodied a lot of principles, these sustainable design principles, renewable energy, and then water strategies. So when we are talking about sustainable buildings or sustainable architecture, it's not all about seeing buildings, skyscrapers. It has to do with buildings, materials that do not affect the environment, that cause no harm or unsustainable effects. Lessons learned and best practices. Integrated design approach. Our approaches in design should have sustainable architecture projects often involve integrated design process where architects, engineers, and other stakeholders collaborate from the early stages to optimize the building performance. We have a community engagement, contextual responsiveness, innovative technologies, and passive strategies, life cycle train thinking, multifunctional and adaptive design, collaboration, and knowledge sharing, just as what we are having now. Integrating sustainable architecture with United Nations goals. This is where we need to look at it critically. Sustainable Development Goal 7, that's affordable and clean energy. Sustainable energy can significantly contribute to increasing the share of renewable energy and improving energy efficiency in the built environment. Then sustainable development, it can contribute and help create more inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable systems and communities through integration of green infrastructure, efficient resource use, and climate responsive design. Sustainable Development 13, climate change. Sustainable architecture can play a crucial role in mitigating and adapting climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emission, enhancing climate resilience, and promoting sustainable resource management. Linkage to Sustainable Development 3, good health and well-being, and also Sustainable Development 6, clean water sanitation. Possibly impact human health and well-being through improved indoor air quality, access to natural light, and efficient water management. Opportunities for further innovation and collaboration. We have technological advancements, financing policy frameworks, education and capacity building. And in conclusion, by aligning sustainable architecture with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and fostering innovation and collaboration across disciplines, the built environment can become a driving force in achieving a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient future for all. Thank you for listening, and I hope I've been able to make use of my 20 minutes in showcasing or showing how sustainable development goals can align with sustainable architecture, and for us to inculcate and be sustainable advocates wherever we are in our practices, in our teaching, and in whatever we do. Thank you very much for listening.